we were talking about causes for the revolving door syndrome, why people seem to be coming in and then they go out as fast as they came in. Has my dad talked to you about Tunisia at all in respect to this revolving door syndrome? Mike, could you tell us some about Tunisia and the revolving door that's happening there?
There's just overwhelming response, and so many people are coming to churches, and then we don't get contact information. They come for a little while, they go out before somebody can disciple them. They're just, especially after the revolution, there were so many, and now there's still many. But it's just a problem contacting with them and discipling them, especially in the church situation where they're uncomfortable. They come in, they go out before anybody can visit with them.
Yeah, so they're so open. They've got this society that's kind of it's boiling with interests, and there's, you know, like we went to Tunisia, my dad and I and two other Lebanese guys, and we visited Mike, and so we came, and it was my first time in Tunisia, and I was expecting to have a little bit harder time with the Arabic there, and I was pleasantly surprised that once you learn about 10 different kind of distinctive Tunisian words, then you kind of get the rest. And I was also pleasantly just surprised that the Tunisians understood us as Lebanese pretty darn well. I was expecting a bigger gap, and then I was also surprised at how open Tunisians are. Just various people that we would meet, they're just very open to the gospel, but there doesn't seem to be this breakthrough into the commitment. They come, they like it, they're interested, they're open-minded, they like European things, and they're very European, they're very educated, and a lot of them, and but they're not sticking around. Why? Why is it? You know, my dad went and preached at the Charles de Gaulle Church in Tunisia, in the capital, Tunis, and he asked them to raise their hands. He said, how many people have been a believer less than 1 year? 70% raised their hands. And then he came back the next year and he asked the same question and he got the same answer. Why? And he said, where are those 70% from last year? Some of them were still there, some of them had, you know, most of them had gone away, and there were new believers that were coming in, all new excited people that are interested and they feel like they like what's going on, but why aren't they sticking? Why aren't they sticking? So we've been looking at some of these factors for why they don't stick. We talked about the disillusionment and the false expectations, also the false or the mixed motives for coming, and when those motives don't get fulfilled, they fall away. Some of them feel, oh, you're gonna, you know, basically you're inviting me to church to test me out if I'm interested, and then if I'm a good candidate, then you'll hire me to be a Christian. We were just talking about that with Mike, that if you pay for somebody to, you know, somebody's transportation to come, or if you pay for any little thing for them, they'll start getting the impression, oh, they're testing me out, maybe I'll get the job or something like that. Because they have this idea of, you know, they know of Islamic techniques like of taqiyya, where they get you in the door and then they try to keep you in, or using financial techniques like in West Africa. You were telling me that the Shiites would be paying $1,000 a month to a woman just to start wearing a veil, because they're trying to Islamize so they're investing to Islamize. So they think that the Christians are going to do the same thing because that's their model of religion. That's how you get religion. It's an outward in model. It's a behavior modification, and if you can get the tide of culture going that way, then you pick up steam and you can get Islam there. So they think that Christians, when they're coming, they're trying to do the same things. Okay? Difficulty assimilating in the church. Sometimes there's in every church, there's the clique mentality sometimes where, or maybe it's not a mentality, but it's a phenomenon, where the tight-knit people in the church, they're all kind of caring for each other. I don't know if my dad has drawn this chart of concentric circles for you guys. Has he? Yes? As a whole class? Where there's the very middle core is the pastor, and then there's the elders and leaders. Then there's the third circle would be like the committed ones that are always there and they all know each other. And so from that circle in, everybody knows each other's names, everybody's caring for each other, maybe visiting each other. And then there's the people that kind of come and go on the outside, and they try to come in and they can't break into that community because the pastors and leaders, they don't have enough time to give to more people than the flock, than the current flock, and they're not training up shepherds to care for a larger flock because they're not delegating, they're not able to give it. They still feel that every person needs to come through me, and there's just not enough me to go around, so I'm sorry, we're kind of closing the doors. And some attitudes that we saw in some churches in Tunisia were like that. Like, we came in with a seeker that we met on the street, and my dad met him on the street. I wasn't there yet. But he met him on the street and just started sharing the gospel with him. He's very open, and he comes in, let's bring him to church. And we bring him to church, and the leader is there, his attitude's like, oh, great, welcome, anytime you want to come. If you don't want to come, whatever. He wasn't saying, oh, we want to teach you, what are your questions? How can I answer you? He's like, I've seen thousands like him. I'm putting myself in the pastor's position in Tunisia. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that come in and then they just go. And if I don't know how to solve this problem, it's like I'm getting tired of all these new people, the same old story, but new faces all the time. So this is what's going on in Tunisia. Every context is a little bit different, but some of these same revolving door things are happening. Then there's the trophies and pedestals. This especially is happening when, with foreign workers' involvement. We discussed that. And then we'll talk about, and then we also, a key point under this is when we try to get converts into ministry prematurely. And this also goes hand in hand with the hiring to be a Christian part, is okay, if they don't think I'm hiring them to be a Christian, they still are interpreting like, maybe I can get a job somehow through this organization. I see a little money here and there. Maybe I can get a job. So when a missionary or even a national worker is saying, oh, come and serve with us, what does serve with us mean? Oh, is there money, or is it volunteer, or is it volunteer for a while to see if I'm genuine, and then maybe I'll get money? So when you talk to a new believer, we know as mature Christians that every believer should serve, right? So we want to raise up leaders. We want to say to the new believer, oh, well, how can you serve? How can you use your gifts and things like that? And that's good, but we got to be really careful, because sometimes they think that the using of the gifts or serving, and in Arabic the word khadim, if you become a servant, it means like a minister or something like that. It's this big term, khadim. So like, for example, in Lebanon, we saw this new believer. His wife led him to Christ, and he just started thriving. He's a little bit older than the youth group people, but he just started really loving on these youth, and you saw that he's really excited about the gospel, and he has some charisma and stuff like that. So we started saying, oh, why don't we have him help out with the youth group and kind of lead the meetings and maybe do some games and maybe help, maybe he'll read some Bible verses to them. And he can't teach yet, but he's, whatever. So he got in there, and he felt like he's now, he's one of the leaders now. And so we did that a little too fast. Because we were not too careful. We weren't careful enough to just, it's not like we wanted this happy balance between pushing down people that have gifts and bringing them up too fast. Because there's problems with both. You don't want to stifle people, but you also do not want to get them to have this orientation of, oh, I'm a leader now. Because he was part of a discipleship class until we gave him that little role of like, oh, you get to stand up and, be somewhat of a leader, one of the leaders of the youth group. When he started doing that, he stopped showing up at the discipleship class. Why? Oh, I'm a leader now. I'm not a disciple anymore. So we got to be really careful about that stuff. And also, we're going to talk more about leadership, especially on the last day, Friday. I'm going to do a couple sessions on leadership. But I think that we need to examine what do we think a leader, what are the components of what makes a leader. Because if you want to make a leader out of a new believer, what do you have to do? Is it about their gifting or is it about their character? And what I'm going to say is that the foundation of a leader must be character. So if you're going to do leadership development from day one, you need to focus on the character. You need to focus on the humility, servanthood, before you focus on the gifts. Oh, this guy has gifts, let's use his gifts. Because when you use the gifts before the character gets formed, then you're going to mess up the character a lot of the time. So this is the segue into perpetual immaturity. Once a convert becomes a celebrity and a leader, it is very difficult to get them to submit to a beginner's discipleship program because you've taught them that they know it. You've taught them that they know it all. Implicitly, you've told them, you've arrived. You're good. You can start serving now. Immaturity can be expressed in pride, a spirit of independence, divisiveness, gossip, unforgiveness, and deception. Okay, the problem of dependency. We tend to develop in converts a dependency on ourselves. It makes us feel good. We need to gradually help new believers stand on their own feet as they learn to testify, to witness, and to exercise their gifts. We need to help converts and convert churches to be self-dependent, self-supporting, and self-training. So, the problem of dependency, I would also say, just as a side comment, we need another balance here between dependency and not supporting the local church. So some missiology or some practices or ways of thinking, they go so far running away from creating dependency that they're afraid to give any kind of support to the nationals. For example, have some friends who are going to a remote part of India, and they just want to get out there into the boondocks, and they just I forget what the context was, but they said, oh, and we have a policy, we're never gonna give any money to nationals and make sure that because it'll mess them up and mess up their view of being a Christian and things like that. And I said, I totally understand where they're coming from, because especially with new believers, you don't want to start hiring people to evangelize and things like that. But what about you? Are you hired to evangelize? Do we have a double standard here? Because the missionary, aren't we causing dependency of the missionary? Right? If we're supporting financially the missionary, what if we then, the money dries up, what will the missionary do? Well, they'll have to go get a job. That's what a different job. Sorry, I'm a missionary too, and it's a job. But they'll have to get a different job. Yes?
What's the best way then to support nationals? Hand it to somebody who's in a position to know what to do?
That's a good question. That's a great question. One principle is you find people that are already going in a direction and sacrificing for this direction, which is ministry. And you can find ways to support and help them. So it's not like finding somebody that has some potential that you see that could do something and say, hey, what do you think about, let's go out on the streets and, evangelize, and then you start paying them to do that. Or, or even that you get them volunteering for a while and then test them out as a volunteer and then start financially supporting them. It's the same thing in a way. What I would say is you need to find that guy that is out there on the streets day in and day out and is, sacrificing his time. And I'm not saying that every single person who is evangelizing needs to be full-time. But if they have a financial need or are stuck in a job that is not allowing them to be used of God, then you could start supporting somebody like that. Another thing is if you can find a proxy who can support him. For example, if you could talk to the pastor of that person. So instead of just going around the pastor and talking to hey, what do you think about working with me? And I'll pay you and we'll go out together and you're great. And then you go and ask the pastor's permission, or you have him go ask the pastor's permission. I would say go to the pastor and say, hey, listen, there's this guy. Would you like to be able to support him? And could I give some funds to the church? And maybe he would know about it. Maybe he wouldn't know where these funds are coming from. And maybe the church could support this guy and start doing that. So we've done that before, where we give money to the church. And yeah, we still do that. We give money to churches, and the churches will support their people. Other times we just, we have staff members that are directly from us. And you need some clarity in that. But that's a good way to do it. I have an American friend that I told you about yesterday. He doesn't have the Arabic language, but he's been, he's trying to, he wants to support nationals, and to be honest, he doesn't know who to trust. He trusts me. We talk and we support each other. We pray together. We meet together, maybe once a month for breakfast and stuff like that. And so I help him to kind of groom some of the nationals that he's working with, because I ask about them with my contacts that are nationals. And, so there's kind of these gradation levels of the complete nationals, and there's me, I'm a hybrid, and then there's, a little bit more foreign. So the foreign guys, I'm trying to get him to a level of information about these people so that nobody is, tricking him or taking advantage of him. He knows who he can trust. He knows who's genuine. And then also I'm helping him by, so our organization will support this guy. And maybe he knows about it, maybe he doesn't. So maybe he thinks the support's coming from Horizons, maybe he thinks it's coming from this other guy, depending on if he wants his relationship to be affected that way. So there's different ways that it can be done, but this has to be done in prayer, and you have to do it as a community. And sometimes the temptations are these political conflicts between churches and organizations, and who's going to be the boss and things like that. Those prevent us from being able to be wise about how to use these things. Because if I want to glorify my organization, I would rather pay the guy, so I'm getting credit with the guy, I'm getting bigger. But maybe the real kingdom benefit is if I give it secretly and not let the right hand know what the left hand is doing, give it secretly to the church, and then what's the benefit of that? There's another benefit, which is that you're training the church to think, oh, we want to support our people to go out there and do ministry. So we want to raise support for our people. Yes, Baba.
For the video.
Come on up.
We have very bad examples of people who are zealous for the Lord and they're doing good work like you were describing, but have been spoiled by Westerners coming in and identifying this leader. And they say, oh, I can claim him. So here's your $500 a month. Another one, here's your $200 a month. Another one, here's your $1,000 a month. Here's a car. Let's buy him a car. Let's buy him a house. And they completely destroy that person. Yeah. And they become totally given to worldliness and power and they start playing games with the missionaries, and they say, this one gives me more, so I'll go with him. This one does not give me enough, I'll just leave him alone.
And it's all couched in missions terminology and Christian terms, and so it's hard to see sometimes.
If we could disseminate an idea among all missionaries, you need to be careful how you use your money, because money corrupts. And so with this system, going to the church, you'll always go to the source. You go, who's your pastor? Let's talk to your pastor. And then the pastor will give you advice. Sometimes pastor says, no, I know better about this person than you think. They're not worthy. They may be right, they may be wrong, but at least you need to know what the pastor thinks. And so be careful with that. But what you said was excellent about encouraging the behind the scenes. When I was in Kosovo in the beginning few years, I had a principle that I would not be viewed as a money, as a wallet. So no one saw me dole out money. And so I appointed a group from 4 churches, we call them trustees. They received the money. And they had a bank account, and they had to decide between them, 7 members who would decide between them what cause is worthy of support. We gave money to that group, and the 4 churches represented in that group, there were only 4 churches at the time, they took the credit. They fielded the people. They interviewed the people who needed support, and they held them accountable. So when I come as a teacher. I teach the Word of God. I don't come as a money man. Some of them figured it out, that whenever I'm there, there's more money in the church. But still, it's not direct. I'm not giving it direct, and I'm not making the decisions. So people don't come to me, can you support me? Can you take me to America? Talk to your pastor.
Yeah. So sometimes the flesh wants to say, I want the glory and the credit for this, but you're actually messing up your own ministry because of that. You're messing up your credibility and who you are to the nationals. You're messing up, basically you're inviting people to have conflicts of interest. Where when people are coming to you, you don't know whether they're coming to you with real spiritual issues or they're coming to you for other motives. So if you want people to come to you with bad motives, get the glory for yourself.
Yeah.
You can get the glory and all the bad motives, all at the, all as a package deal. But if you don't care as much about the glory, who gets the credit for it, and you actually would be happy to have the national church start getting the credit, then you're going to win a lot of friends with the national church. It's going to seem to the national church like this is a partnership, not like some organizations coming and stealing my best talent and running away and paying them more than I could pay them. It's good in these ways. Of course, with like my dad said, you need to be careful of the pastors too. Sometimes you can't just trust, if the pastor says that's a good idea, then, or if the pastor says something bad about this guy, he must be a bad guy. You gotta be innocent as doves and as wise as serpent about this. But also you have to grade up. American money is powerful in terms of what, we'll feel like something's cheap and it'll be, expensive to the nationals. Even in Lebanon, where it's an expensive country, I have to really figure out from the nationals, what do people make around here? What do people make around here for doing this job or for doing that job? Oh, really? It's only that much? And you don't want to pay a lot more for a ministry job than they would be getting in the world. And that sounds, that's logical. Sometimes it feels bad because, this really? I mean, you think, what am I getting? And, this guy's only getting this. But take it easy. You gotta learn. Like there's different levels of poverty as well. There's different levels of poorness, and you got to kind of meet somebody where they're at, and not not overdo it. So we want to balance this. Don't overdo it, but don't say, oh, I don't want to overdo it and spoil the Nationals, so I'm not going to give them a penny. So the consequences of that is you get missionaries coming in and, oh, we're raising like $6,000 a month to be able to live in this country, and I'm not giving anything to the Nationals to be able to get by. It's not good. So you don't want to go on either side. And also, we would like to see in the next generation of believers, we'd like to see people that are in full-time ministry, right? That are supported in full-time ministry. So you have to start this community of people. You have to invest in that in wise ways, just like people invested in the original missionaries that were sent out from the West. There was abuse of funds, and people got a big head about it, and all the problems happened in the West. But that didn't stop us, right? That didn't stop us from sending missionaries over land and sea to impact the whole world. Why do we have a double standard with the Nationals? We shouldn't have a double standard, but we have to do it in wisdom and as much wisdom as possible. Without causing dependency, you got to do it in as sustainable ways as possible, but let's not let the word sustainable stop us from using Western funds to bless and grow Eastern ministries. Because the church is the church. The global church is the global church. There's, in any business, let's say if a business is going to open up in a strategic new area, they have to bring from areas that are more profitable and invest in those areas to get things going. That's not weird in the world, but so it shouldn't be weird in the church. Well, that's not that the world is our standard, but you know what I mean. Okay, sense of entitlement. This is more about financial support. A number of converts find it easier to depend on the church and their mentors to support them financially rather than work and earn a living. So this is a symptom of the overpaying mentality. I want to be generous. Oh, this guy is so genuine. I want to bless him. I want to help him. And from the bottom of our hearts, we're messing people up because they're getting too much of a margin that's higher than what they could get in the world. Because we need to thresh. We need to be able to see who really is committed to the ministry. And so why shouldn't somebody take a pay cut to get into ministry? I think that's healthy sometimes. I think it's healthy for the individual to say, okay, I'm getting this certain amount for working in a shoe factory. Why don't I get a little bit less because I'm getting more because I'm able to serve. Like it's a benefit to be able to serve, so I'll take less money and scrape by so that I can serve the Lord. That's a healthy thing that actually, even down the road, for that person, knowing that they did that, it shows them that their own intentions, it reminds them that their intentions were good for getting into ministry. Rather, if you say, oh, I can get a couple $100 more a month for being in ministry rather than being in secular, then everybody's going to want to do it. Oh, any nice believer, oh, I want to be in ministry, I want to be in ministry. And then what you get is people that have serial relationships with different organizations, and they hop around, and so they start with one person, and they're able to convince the missionary that, oh, I'm a good guy, and I really want to do ministry, and then things don't work out, and then it's done. And then the context that he got in that ministry job, and he can use it to find a new ministry job and convince the next guy that's coming around, and they start hopping around. Yes?
Question, aside from compensation for work, somebody comes to you with a specific need, legitimate, what do you do with that?
Well, like a medical need? Like a transportation need? Okay.
In light of,
in light of all that?
Given one who asked.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've got to use wisdom, and you've got to seek guidance about that. And so some of the strategies that I talked about are good to use. So for you, for example, you say, this person needs education for a certain thing or something like that. Let's talk to the church. Let's talk to the pastor, and you can talk to the pastor on the side and say, listen, I feel like I'd like to contribute toward them getting some education. Glorify the church. Try to find some way to do it, or try to find a matching gift from the church. Say, listen, this person wants to learn English, or they want to do whatever, or they have a surgery. They have they need $400, and because they need this surgery. I'd like to give $200 to the church for this. Can the church give the other 200? Or can you talk to people, take up a collection. You should take up collections to people that are poorer than you. Why not? Like we started the School of Hope in Beirut, and we didn't have a budget for it when we started it, and so we needed desks, we needed to buy desks, and it was taking a while for me to raise some funds for it. I didn't have any funds for it. It's been a few weeks. The teachers are having trouble because the kids are, crowded and whatever. We needed desks, and the Nationals just said, "Hey, can we just take up an offering?" So they started talking to the refugees and saying, "Listen, we need desks for the school," and and they started getting involved. They started giving $2, $3. Somebody gave $10. And they're taking up a collection. I gave a little bit. Some of the staff members, were giving. And so, the idea is you don't want to say, "Oh, I could write a check for $400. I could just give that $400 and help that person." But what if there's a better way that can actually, instead of laying that precedent of like, "Oh, then they're just going to come back next time there's a need," or their friend's going to hear about it and praise God, this guy helped. Oh, then everybody's going to start coming to you, and you can't give to every single person that asks if you keep giving out that easily. So you got to pray with people, give it a little bit of time, let them struggle a little bit, and then help, show them love by helping in a certain amount, so that you don't just show, "Oh, I've got plenty and I'll just cover it all." Let's pray about the rest. I'm going to give you this, and let's pray about the rest. Let's see if the church will help. Let's, all of that. So that's some advice about it. But there's no cut and dry answer to this. This is all you have to use the wisdom that God gives and the situations.
One principle I have used is, if I weren't in the situation, what would the person do? And I have to think about lifestyle, impact into the future, relationship with others. It can become complicated. So sometimes I decide, I could help. But I could also explain that this is a temporary help, and sometimes it helps to loan the money rather than give it away.
Mm-hmm.
So I can help you with this much. So rather than say, I can't help you at all, if the need is $1,000, say, look, I can give you $25, and I pray that the Lord will provide the rest for you.
Yeah.
Don't feel that you have to give all of it. The $25 may not be well received, but it still be a test of their character, whether they appreciate that or not. And then you know if they'll appreciate it as 1,000, because many of them don't even appreciate it as 10,000. They want more. They think you are getting more benefits than they are from you.
Yeah. So for me, like, we will loan people money sometimes from the organization, or like staff members even will loan them some money. I will very rarely give personally or loan personally. Very, very rarely, because I don't want people to start looking at me as that money. So if I want to give personally, I will give through the organization, or I'll give to the church, and nobody will know that that's me that's giving, so that it's easier for me that way. I mean, that, everybody, do what works best for you in your situation. But for us, they know that there's an organization there. We have a center and all of that. So talk to them, when they talk to me for a need, I don't respond to them personally. I respond to them as the organization, and let me see if the organization has the budget for that. Let me talk to this person. Don't put it as my, they're checking you to see, are you the one making this decision? Are you the decision maker, or who's the decision maker? Because they want to get to the decision maker. And I'll say, I have to go back to my leadership. I have to, talk, so I have to talk with the national, I have to talk with the other staff or whatever, so they see, because if I show everybody, oh, I'm the decision maker, even though I am, and I'm I can tell the team to do whatever I want or whatever. I'm of course accountable to the organization, but in Lebanon, I'm the boss. I can do whatever I want, but I would rather not have people see me that way in terms of the the population. Even sometimes they don't even know that I'm the guy that's in charge, because when they ask me, I'd say like, oh, what do you, oh yeah, I serve here with with Brother Sharbel and that. And they don't know whether I'm his boss or he's my boss. Sometimes, because if I'm the boss, and then and I'm making the decisions about, oh, I can dole out money here and there, then people are just going to start coming to me for money, and that's not what I want. So I can help in other ways. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been working in Africa for 27 years, and so we get a lot of beggars. And they're really, really foreign. Since the beginning, I decided I don't give money if they don't work for it. Like if somebody comes for a medical, they got to work for it. And one time, my faith really got stretched because this guy came to the gate, never seen him before, elephantitis, he couldn't even walk hardly. And since it was my policy, I said, okay, there's a field there, here's the machete, here's the file to sharpen the machete with, cut that and I'll give you $2 for your medicine. And I walked back in the house and I thought, how's he ever going to mow the grass? And I came back out a half an hour later and the grass was all mowed. I gave him his $2, gave $1 to a little boy that he hired to do the work. So trust God, He will provide also for the people, and sometimes you'll face those hard times where you don't want to say no, but you have to, but God will provide.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do that, but when you live by those principles, it's a long-term gain, and it helps them. Like, we all know that book cover that says "When Helping Hurts." Anybody actually read it? Okay, yeah, cool. We got to think of the spiritual aspect of this person that we're helping. When we give to them, we have to give it in a way that makes them, that empowers them and doesn't cripple them. Okay, so housing. Some hop around from house to house to avoid paying rent and food. Job. Some become lazy and expect Christians to find them jobs that they will like and become a little bit spoiled. Some assume that Christians owe it to them to support them financially. I left Islam, I left my family, I lost this and that. You have to support me. You have to, that's the expectation. I know some guys, that had lived at the center for a while, been discipled, and they got some contacts with other organizations and other, people, and they just start going around and sharing their testimony and getting a little money here and a little money there. Oh, I'm in a really difficult, I need help with my rent. I need this. I know this guy who got like $6,000 over the course of a few months from this one organization, and then he's writing to people all over the world through Facebook, and we hear about it. My dad say, oh, there's this guy, this woman in Turkey told me about this guy in Lebanon, and he's a convert and he's in need, and he told me his name. I was like, oh yeah, we know him. Like, he was there, and this guy, he was able to work. He just, the work that he was doing on Facebook was more lucrative than the work that he was doing on, to be a manual laborer. And he actually passed away a couple months ago. Like, I don't know what happened. He had some kind of heart issue, but he had just been going from ministry to ministry, just just hitting him up for cash. Going to a church, he would attend a church for a while. He would attend several different churches, just milking it. So we got to be careful about the way that we do things. Unstructured lifestyle. Muslims who grew up with strict rules often feel lost and nostalgic for the orderliness or for the structure. Many find Christianity lacking religious discipline, and there's a lack of authority in the church. In terms of, you don't have anybody just telling you what to do in the Islamic way. So they kind of have this, like, it's kind of a free-for-all mentality. We're like, oh, you can just kind of do whatever you want. And then so this, well, I need to realize this is a different subject. Okay, so the unstructured lifestyle, this is not connected with the financial thing. The unstructured lifestyle is just, they start coming to church and they start, like my dad was talking, it's a different topic every Sunday. They don't have this prescribed practices. And so they just feel like, is this religion? Like, I can pray whenever I want or not pray. I can fast whenever I want or not fast. And it's just kind of, they're floating. And they don't feel like they're anything. They almost feel like they're an atheist or something like that, because there's nothing to it, this Christianity. You just have nice conversations and you sit together and talk about the Bible, and that's, there's nothing to it. So that kind of a lifestyle will make people sometimes just, go back into Islam. Divisiveness in the church, confusion over the various denominations. This is something that we face all the time because we have several different churches that are, serving in the center. We've become a little bit more organized more recently, and there's now kind of an understanding that we focus on the general commonalities of evangelicalism. But before that, there was a lot of people that would just come in and start heavy hitting on their denominations, take on the Holy Spirit or on salvation or all this stuff. There would be controversy. So you'd see this new convert come to Christ and thinking that there's just Christianity, and then one pastor comes in, says this, one pastor comes in, says that. You see conflicts, you see fighting over people, fighting over power and glory. You hear one pastor say, don't go to that church, come to my church, things like that. And that has made a lot of people just fall away and say, I don't want this. I could just, you do hear, converts saying, oh, well, the mosques got along better than the churches get along. Lack of unity in doctrine, especially pertaining to sacraments and speaking in tongues, stuff like that.